On this episode of the Star Wars Time Show, Matt and Nick will overanalyze the latest episode of The Bad Batch, a different approach, as they highlight key story details, Star Wars references, and where the plot is headed next. If you're not down with The Batch, they'll also discuss recent comments from Andor's Stellan Skarsgård and the Acolyte's Amandla Stenberg to see if they can parse any useful story info from their quotes. Of course, the show will end with the Question of the Week segment and the latest round of Top 5 Star Wars fan honors features. Punch it, Chewie. Oh my goodness. Hey now, everybody! Welcome back to the Star Wars Time Show. We see you. J.O.D., my father, Bat. Who else is up in this piece? Joey C. Yep. Clocking in with that Haywood DNA that we're all so proud of. If you're a Haywood, you know what I'm talking about. What's going on, my friends? Good to have you back on this SWTS Wednesday. That's right. We need to work on our intro. Like I said, I'm becoming a big fan of Pat Mack. He's a fellow Pittsburgher. He's got that Yinzer in him that I appreciate, even though I don't have the accent. But I love the way he opens his show. He's like, football or sports. It's very meatheady, but it's a great show. Outside of his association with Mr. Rogers, I'm a huge fan of that guy. He's a fucking talent. Like he was a punter in the NFL that turned that into a career in the WWE that then turned that into he's now getting paid $85 million a year from ESPN to broadcast his show from the Thunderdome out of Indianapolis. Pretty cool shit there. Bunch of animals that work for him too. One day I'd love for that to be Nick and I talking Star Wars and sports. Probably never going to happen, but that would be the goal. Getting flown out to the Super Bowl, out to Star Wars Celebration, Japan, treated like media royalty. But I digress. It's time to get into some Star Wars time. That's what you all are here for, right? That's what you clicked on. I see my screens are a little out of order. Let's get this sexy guy up on the live stream. Speaking of live streaming, if you've never done it, you want to try it out. Wednesdays now, 5 p. East, or as close as we can get it, because you know it's not going to be right at 5, youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show. But what we have on the screen right now, everyone, if you're fans of Hayden Christensen, Empire just released a tease of what looks like an issue almost dedicated to him, or he has like a focused segment in this issue of Empire. And first and foremost, I love the cover, right, Nick? I mean, that's a good looking cover, good looking man. Yeah. Love the use of light. You know, here in the Star Wars Time Show, we're big fans of how light is used on Star Wars figures and characters. So love the cover here. More importantly, though, for people that are fans of Hayden, Anakin, the prequels, the actual words and shit are pretty damn great to take in, because they kind of get into the mind of Hayden, ask him about things from his past 20 years prior when he first started working in Star Wars on Attack of the Clones. There's a few I want to read to you, Nick. I'll parse some of them, but there's one I really want to get into, because he directly talks about the shit that bothers me the most about Rots, that the scene in Palpatine's chambers, the choice between the Jedi and the Sith. And he provided some insights. Still doesn't make me feel overly great about it, but it helps. But first, one of my favorite scenes of Hayden as Anakin, the Tusken Raider scene, Nick, he addressed it. I know you hate it, think he looks like an idiot. But he kind of talked about that moment and how he was struggling to kind of find the emotions that George was looking for. So much so, Nick, that he had to walk off set and kind of quarantine himself in his trailer to try and channel the right emotions. And it actually took George leaving the set himself, going and finding Hayden and kind of talking to him. letting him know, like, hey, this is just a little bit. You're close. I just need this, a little more, a little less of, and we got it.
So what you're saying is that's just real tears, because that's the moment he realized that George Lucas can't direct
George
people.
He's like, George ain't helping. He's like, George walked out. He's like, hey, man, love the guy, but shit. That just wore me out. Hell, I've got it. Yeah. I've got the sadness now.
Yeah, it's like, now I can do it. I can do it.
Yeah, now I'm sad.
Now I can legitimately cry because this is where this is what it's come to.
Yeah, so you understand. But this is what I'm saying. Like, this article is full of these types of insights, like direct anecdotes from his time working on Star Wars, which, we didn't really have access to back then because of the internet wasn't the monster it is now. Everything was in print. There were no YouTubes and shit like that. Empire wasn't even digital at that point in time, probably. Yeah. So the other one I want to get into, like I said, this one resonated with me because he talks about the fall. And I've always discussed on this show, and it means that upsets some people. Get over it. It's okay. I can have my opinions. You don't have to make fun of me. But they talk about the tipping point, the Mace, Sidious, who do I go with? And here's what Hayden had to say. It's a little long, so stick with me, friends. That scene is the tipping point in Anakin's fall to the dark side. He has Mace Windu and Darth Sidious, Jedi and Sith, both pleading his allegiance, and he has to make a choice. When we were filming that scene, George spoke about how Anakin was conflicted, but not yet corrupted, and that he still wanted to do the right thing. See, I think that's my biggest problem. I was expecting a bit more corruption, I guess, I guess what I'm looking for. But I digress. We move on.
I also, one second on that. I like how when George is like, this is how you should feel emotionally, he just writes those words into the dialogue instead of letting the emotion of the actor dictate how they feel, because Anakin in that scene literally says, I shouldn't, it's wrong. It's like, you don't have to say you're conflicted. You can just act it, that's what
how dare you, Nick?
Do.
How dare you? There's no acting in Star Wars except from Stellan Skarsgård.
There's a line late in the next question after this, or actually the whole next question after this just sums up how George is as a director to a T.
We'll get there, but he
continue on.
Yeah, he keeps talking about the fall. It's a hugely transitional scene for the character and one that sets the course for everything that follows. I remember in the weeks leading up to filming it, I was trying to figure out how to express his turn and acceptance of the anointment of Darth Vader. It needed an observable shift in character. Not. And this was actually the origin of George and I discussing giving Anakin Sith eyes. Originally, there was no mention of it, and George was initially against the idea when I brought it up. I loved the visual of Sith eyes and thought it could make sense. Darth Maul had them, and Sidious has them. George responded saying that Count Dooku didn't, and I thought that was the end of that. A few days later, he came back to me and said he thought about it more and more and now liked the idea of Sith eyes. But not for that scene. I think that was because it would have misinformed things. Anakin's fall to the dark side isn't just about good and evil and ideological views. It's also about timing and circumstance. I think that's my biggest problem. Timing and circumstance, he literally throws his life away and becomes a terror to the entire galaxy. Because of timing, Nick. It has nothing to do with good, evil, ideology. It was all about timing and circumstance, and I don't know, that still just rubs me the wrong way a bit. It's like,
something like that, definitely, timing and circumstances. If you look back on your life as an adult, a lot of where your life is because of timing and circumstance. That, it's just very true. There's a lot of things that happen that are out of our control, and the timing of those things and the circumstance that we're in when those things happen dictate a lot of how your life shifts in big moments. So I can understand that from George's perspective. What I will say is that, I've already said my piece about the writing of that particular scene. You don't have to vocalize emotion. Emotion is shown through acting and your ability to convey it without using words. And oftentimes when you do it without using the words of the emotions in your speech, it's more powerful. So there's, I mean, like, but we've always known that the writing for the prequels was weak.
How dare you? We were called assholes. I put out our silly. I clipped we were talking about Attack of the Clones making Jedi look silly. I think Nick is the one that coined the term silly Jedi. And I put it out last night, and the comment on YouTube was like, something like, don't waste your time listening to this. These guys make no sense. I was like, you nailed it. That is the Star Wars time show in its essence.
I mean,
Nick, I'm telling you, if you say anything negative about the prequels to the wrong person, they will kill you. That's where we're at with the prequel generation. They will fucking kill you.
5 years ago, the same people wouldn't have given a shit. So it's just like all that's happening now is that they've shifted their ire to the sequels now.
Right,
and
they're
if
like,
the sequels
sweet.
didn't exist,
they're like, they don't hate my trilogy
the
anymore.
prequels.
They hate this one. So now I don't feel as bad.
So
I got
so
you.
all of the people out there who are now like, coming and shitting on everybody's opinions about the prequels, who have had the same opinion about the prequels since they released. And it's not like we're flip-flopping here. Go back. We are very consistent. All of those people just now have a new trilogy to hate instead of the prequels. So their opinions mean about as little to me as anybody else on this planet.
Amen.
So,
me too, but it's still fun to hear it and see how it makes you feel as a human. But this is the one you liked here. Was George generally collaborative?
This is great. I'm going to read this because I think it's hilarious.
Okay, run with it.
This first line will tell you exactly what the answer to this question is. George is a visionary and always knew exactly what he wanted. So the answer to this question is no.
Right.
But
I somehow got Sith eyes added in on Mustafar.
Yeah, but Hayden will show you what George does to make his actors feel like they are a part of the process. So George is a visionary and always knew exactly what he wanted. But when I had an idea, he would always hear me out and consider it. When I had an instinct on set and wanted to try something different than what we were doing, he would always indulge me. And when he says indulge me, that literally means he's going to let me have my fun, but he's going to do what he wants to do.
Like he's a little kid. Like, okay, it's like, Hayden, little buddy, you got it, pal. We'll do that.
I remember on several occasions explaining what I wanted to try, and George would always say, well, I know when I get to the editing room and I've got your version and my version, I'm always going to use my version, but sure, let's give it a try. And he was right. He always did use his version.
But what definition of right is Hayden using there? I mean, he was right in that, he said, fuck you, Hayden, but was he right in choosing George's version over Hayden's version?
Yeah. So what this is telling me is that like George literally just George is like, I already know what the movie is in my head, so whatever you want to do, sure. You can go off and do it, but it's going to end up deleted or on a cutting room floor or something like that.
We know this is legit because he did it to everyone. I mean, poor Nick Gillard in the stunt team would spend months training for a fight that was in the script. He'd show up on set and be like, nah, we're not. Fuck that. We're not doing that. Yoda's fighting today. And Nick could be like, what? Okay.
It's like, oh, wait, did I show you the flippy thing that the special effects department did for me last night because I got super stoned and thought it would be cool?
I love this man. I mean, he's awesome, but can you blame him? I mean, you're George Lucas. You cook all this shit up. It came out of your head. You got these kids and people like, yeah, man, this is what Anakin do. George's like, sure, go give it a try. You fucking idiot. I'm still going to do what I'm going to do in the editing room, you dope. You're not George Lucas. I am.
Like, what I would really like to see is if there was a folder that was like, when they were going through and editing the movie, if it was like, hey,
let's see those deleted shots, man.
Yeah, it's like this is like Hayden's ideas, Ewan's ideas, Natalie's ideas, all the shit that all the actors threw out, like, hey, I really think that this would work here. Being a professional actor who has won awards before or who will win awards in the future, multiple awards, I think that this would work well here. And George is like, yeah, sure, go ahead and do it, bud. It's not going to get in the movie, but go ahead and fulfill your wishes.
I would love to see that cut. Let's make that the prequel special edition. Let's get some of those scenes spliced back in. Get rid of the George cut. Let's get the actor's cut and see who was right.
It would be interesting to see in those moments because, I feel like there was probably a lot of attempted collaboration that happened on the set. Like we hear a little bit here from Hayden saying, what about the Sith eyes, or what about like other little things that he could have thrown out to George that all ended up not being used. I wonder, for somebody like fucking, you have some legends on this film, like you had Christopher Lee, one of the most incredible and well-respected actors of all time that played in these movies. I mean, you had Ian McDiarmid, who obviously plays the Emperor, but is an incredibly well-respected actor as well and has numerous credits to his name. So you have all of this talent on these movie sets, and that's what makes a movie set like that really fun to work on, because if it is a collaborative workspace, you have so many people that have experience and knowledge that could contribute. But I don't think that George allowed that to happen.
Do you think, and this is almost a serious question about this silly topic, but do you think he suffered from a bit of PTSD from his experience on Star Wars and how he was just abused by the UK production staff, his ex-wife, the studio, ILM, like even his own studios were like, "You come on, you fucking idiot, hurry up! You're taking forever. This looks like shit. This is stupid." And I mean, he gave up directing after that one and didn't return until the prequels. So it's like once the prequels were around, then he was God. He had the trilogy was out, the licensing was out, he was printing money. I think he's just like, you know what? Fuck you guys. This is mine. It's always been mine. We're doing it my way this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably contributed. I think that during the original trilogy time, I feel like one, he wasn't well equipped enough to both direct and write and, be the story guide on set as well. So handing those off to Marchand and Kirshner was probably a good idea. But I also think that he knew coming into the prequels that he was like, I'm going to do everything myself, because at this point in my career, nobody can tell me that I can't. Do you think, Nick, some of it too was his desire to use all the new technology, the full green screen, full CG characters, so he wanted to control all that? I think so. I think that he went into the prequels with a very clear vision of how those films were going to be made. Right. Not even necessarily like story beat wise, but like you were saying, like technically, he wanted to push the boundaries of what was possible with CGI. He wanted to expand the toolkit that he had and everything like that, and really push ILM to their limits, given what the capabilities were. And I think that if you had somebody else in the director's chair, they probably would have opted to not do those things and do things a little bit differently. I think that his desire to have those films made in a certain way probably did contribute to, his decision to be director on all three films.
Yeah. All right.
You could argue whether or not that was a beneficial thing for.
I was going to say with hindsight, you never know. Maybe we got some other voices in there. Who knows?
If you bring in, at that point, John Kasdan had worked with George for years, decades up to that point. Like, I really do feel like it could have been beneficial if you let Kasdan sit behind the director's chair for at least one of those films.
Yeah, I don't even. I'd have to go back and look at some of the BTS. I don't even think he had like a second unit director. I think he did everything.
He did both. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, maybe Galar. A lot of times they'll, stunt coordinator will run second unit, because a lot of times they're just shooting like the fighting scenes.
Yeah, I think he may have mentioned something like that he did some second unit directing. It makes sense. In our interview. Yeah.
Oh, speaking of stunts, Stunt Buddy, he got on the James Gunn Superman. So we'll see what that yields. All he could tell me is like, there's some wacky shit going on. It's like, all right.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah, it's like, I know you're not up on Superman anyways, but it's like a wacky shit Superman. What could that even mean? All right, moving on to this article. Again, you all should just go read it. It's out there now. He gets into his relationship with Ewan back in the day. He talks about what it was like to be 18 and cast in Star Wars in a major role, and kind of how that changed his life. And then, this last long quote kind of goes into the negativity that a lot of these people faced during the launch of the prequels, but now, 20 years later, they're starting to kind of reap the benefits of those generations getting older and more or less worshiping them at events like Star Wars Celebration or whatever con that these people attend. And the last little bit here, I thought it was a kind of a wise recap from Hayden. They Empire asked him, like, hey, if this Hayden could go back and talk to 18-year-old Hayden right before he started filming Attack of the Clones, what would you say? And here's what Hayden quoted himself. He said, "Even though I was a bit overwhelmed, I was also a confident young man, and I wanted to make my mark." Arrogance, cockiness. But I guess if I were to have some advice for me during that general time in my life, it would be patience. And they ask him, why patience? And he says, because my journey with the character and with Star Wars has at times been a bumpy one, but I'm in a good place with it now. And so that's why I say patience. So it sounds like, Nick, for a long time, he was not a huge fan of being tied to Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him. I think that, even as evidenced by the earlier answer that we heard in this interview, like even his time making the film seemed like there were some bumps along the way and some uneasy times between him and George. I mean, he said that he literally had to walk off of set because George was saying, like, do it this way. And he's like, I don't know what you mean by that. So he had to go and do that on his own. I will say that, like, this quote, I was a confident young man and I wanted to make my mark. Like, as somebody who's at his age and is put into the position and in the role that he was as Anakin Skywalker, you would assume as an actor that is why they hired you, right? Like, they want you to leave your mark on this character.
Gotta have a big swinging dick to play that role.
Yeah, but what it also seems like is that he was neutered. I'm good, like, for lack of a better term, like, he had vision, like he had, as a professional actor who was on a very good track prior to the release of this film, like we had mentioned prior, like nominated for awards, won Golden Globe Awards prior to the release of Star Wars, I believe. You would assume that there would be more of a collaborative stance, and your thoughts or your opinions on how this character could be portrayed would be taken a little bit more seriously, but it doesn't seem like that's what happened. And that can be very frustrating and require a lot of patience for somebody on set, Well,
I mean, you got to think it from his point of view, and it's true, but Star Wars killed his career. I mean, dead. And unlike his predecessors, Mark Hamill, he didn't have a voice acting career to fall back on. Or like Carrie did with script doctoring and writing. He was just kind of in limbo, living off royalties, and every once in a while he would do like a straight to bin movie.
Yeah. So
oh well.
I like it is a very illuminating conversation that he had, and the things that he says in here are not surprising, just knowing what the sequels turned out to be and how everybody kind of knew George worked on set. So, but it is cool to see, like, to hear him go in depth about some of the things he experienced during that time period.
And you would think that this issue, it's just called Empire Focus, and I'm assuming it's fully dedicated to him. So there's probably more articles, interviews than just what we recapped here. So make sure to check that out. This looks like the April issue of Empire. See, there's always time for Star Wars time. We've got your dead asses covered. Next one here is a real quickie, kind of stupid, but it appears Star Wars, The Mandalorian Grogu, which is like, what a mouthful for a movie title. But it now has a working title. Remember, working titles are kind of the code names. They should just be called code names. But in the biz, they're called working titles. And according to, we're getting this from Bestman Bulletin, but they got it from Cosmic Circus. According to the circus, the working title for The Mandalorian Grogu is Thunder Alley. Ooh. It's like, okay. All right, everyone good with that? Sweet. There's another in the know. So now you know, and knowing is half the battle.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, for those of you out there, like, Blue Harvest. That was the working title for Star Wars: A New Hope for Episode 4.
Mando was Huckleberry.
There's been a ton, like we've talked about working titles for other ones in the past before.
Right.
Blue Harvest, so famous that like as a working title, that is what the first Family Guy Star Wars special was titled. It was Blue Harvest.
Deep cut. Look at that deep cut.
Oh, there you go.
Nick, this one, I kind of want to get your speculation juices flowing, but I want to point this out. This is a more of a visual one, so people on the stream, you can see what we're looking at here, but we're looking at the Instagram feed of Ahmed Best. He's played Jar Jar Binks, Keller and Beck, some dude in the bar next to the dude selling death sticks in Attack of the Clones. He's Star Wars correct, but he's got a picture of himself, Nick, in full mocap suit. He's got the dots on the face, the helmet on, the camera in his beak. And his caption is, "Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. Hashtag mocap, Star Wars, Jar Jar Binks, Activision, Jedi, Sith Lord, Keller and Beck." Let me just point out the fact that he tagged Jar Jar Binks and Sith Lord in the same Instagram post is cheeky as fuck.
Yeah.
No way it's real, but I love that he knows that there's a whole mega movement behind Darth Jar Jar. But Nick, what do you think this is? I mean, Activision being in there, I didn't know that. I don't think they have ties to the Star Wars license unless it's being loaned out by LucasArts Games or whatever. So what do you think this is about?
Actually, isn't Respawn owned by Activision?
You might be right. Or didn't they break out? I thought they broke out and went on their own.
Or maybe they're owned by, I don't know.
You're probably right, because I know Respawn initially started as COD, which we know is Activision's tentpole.
Yeah. Or maybe, okay, yeah, no. So their parent is EA. So you were right. Their first, prior to...
But we know EA no longer has the license. I think it's reverted back to Lucasfilm, Disney, whatever, LucasArts. So I'm wondering if they're just kind of piecemealing it out now. Do you think this is for a Star... I guess let's just start there. I mean, Activision hashtag out of nowhere with a bunch of Star Wars tags. I mean, is Activision working on something we have no clue about?
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, we know that Ubisoft is working on a title. We know that EA is working on a title through Respawn. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if Activision was also given a title.
Jar Jar juggling game. Good one, Bat. That's how he died. Like, he ends up a street juggler and all depressed and homeless on the streets.
So I do think it's probably a video game for Activision. Because, like you said, the license is free; anybody can do it. And the caption itself is it's so hard to decipher, because just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. You would think that would be about Jar Jar if he was playing Jar Jar, because he hasn't played Jar Jar in forever. He's played Keller and Beck in two different things. He played it in the little game show. And,
you don't need mocap for Kellerin.
Well, if you're doing a video game, you're going to need mocap for everything.
Right.
So like. So they're doing mocap for everything. So I would imagine that it's probably Kellerin, but it would be super cheeky if they just had him there and they're like, "Hey, let's do a Jar Jar scene while you're here."
Jar Jar Binks, new operator in Call of Duty. I'm just reading some of the comments. So, you never know. You never know what you get from the peons here.
So yeah, I mean, I think that it would make sense to have a video game that features Keller and Beck, now that we know how pivotal he was in everything around Grogu's, like his rescue, where he went prior to the Mandoverse, whatever else was going on prior to then. We don't know the status of Keller and Beck in current canon right now. Like, we don't know if he's dead. We don't know if he's alive. We don't know. I mean, for as much as we know, he could have been looking for Grogu this whole time, and Mando just found him first. Like, if he was really charged with the safekeeping of Grogu as a Jedi Padawan or a youngling at that time, and he lost him, it's very possible that Keller and Beck could have been looking for Grogu this entire time that he's been gone. So there are a lot of different options.
There's a lot to kind of parse out of this. I mean, he's a pro. You'd think he knows what he can share and what he can't. Not that the image gives anything away, but the hashtags. Yeah. So, I mean, really, the hashtags could be smoke screening us.
Yeah.
It could be nothing. He could be playing literally a random NPC in an Activision video game. And he's just trolling the shit out of all of us too.
Yeah, very much.
I don't know. I'm excited for it. You know, I like seeing people like Ahmed getting work, being happy, considering at one point in time he wanted to jump off a cliff because of Star Wars fans. So that's always positive. It's good to see people kind of rebound and excel after a little bit of shit in their life. But yeah, I don't know. This I got to give credit to Nova. Speaking of Nova, holy shit, man! I should have had you watch it before we went live. Nova and this guy Stop Motion Zach just put out their latest stop motion Star Wars short. It's a sequel to their Mandos versus Droids bit they did like a year or two ago. It's fucking amazing. It's fantastic. Like you have to watch it. You have to watch it. Yeah, go look at Nova Toymation's page, check it out, or Stop Motion Zach. It is, and our guy wrote the whole fucking thing. And really, yeah, the animation is flawless, super smooth. The writing's amazing. Like let's get Nova on a fucking Star Wars property. You know what I mean? Like to be able to script that shit out, literally a script. They had the blocking down, setting up what the stage was going to look like, or in that case, the diorama. Very impressive, Nova, and thank you for the Jar Jar tip here. Yeah, I would take Jar Jar or Kelleran. Let's just Star Wars video games that aren't fucking Battlefront or Jedi Cow. Let's go. I keep forgetting Outlaws is shit. And
Outlaws should be coming. I mean, that's the Ubisoft
right
game,
before the delay. It was like a month out, but now we don't. Now it's probably going to be closer to this fall. So hey, good stuff there, Ahmed. Best. And one last little thing before we get into our breakdown of Bad Batch S3 E4, a different approach. We got some action, Nick, on the Acolyte and Andor. Andor, I think Stellan had a few too many glasses of wine while he was out promoting Dune 2, where Amandla said something that I kind of want to get your thoughts on about her role in the Acolyte. All right, so here's where Stellan is drunk. He's out there doing the Dune press. He plays the Baron, this big fat piece of shit, the Harkonnen. You gotta love him, who floats. But they asked him like, "Hey man, what about Andor?" And Stellan's like, "Yeah, hey, it'll probably be out towards the end of the year, maybe or next year. Who knows? Fuck it, it's coming out at some point in time." I can pretty much tell you to take it to the bank. Andor is not releasing this year. Unless they run into like some major problem with Skeleton Crew or the Acolyte, I don't see this happening. Principal for most of the cast just wrapped maybe a week or two ago, 3 weeks at most. A lot of posts to get done. Then you got the promo machine to ramp up. So, like I said, I think Stellan's just a little too excited, Nick, to see himself again in Andor season 2. So, I would not take Stellan's word on Andor coming out by the end of this year. We've been saying 2025 for a while now, and it just seems like that's going to be the year. Yeah,
I agree with that. I think that he doesn't know, so he was just like, instead of saying I don't know, he just threw out a complete guess.
I mean, he's just one of those personalities. I think it would be awesome to talk to this guy, because he's so good at acting that he could make us feel like he actually wants to be talking to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, sometimes if you ever watch these press junkets, you can tell that the talent would rather be sticking ice picks into their eyes than talking to like Nick and I across, those black rooms, or they're on their little set chairs and they're being asked the same fucking questions all day long in a hotel.
It's like they're just rotating these fucking reporters in and out, and you're like, oh, you're asking the same 5 questions as the last person? Okay, awesome.
This guy, though, I could see him kind of having fun with it and just giving you whatever you ask. Like, hey, Stellan, who's Grogu's dad? Yoda. Fuck it, Andor 2024.
He's just trying to get out of that chair. He's like, whatever, man.
Really is an awesome dude. The Skarsgårds in general. How many we got? Is it there's Stellan?
Alexander.
Stellan, is there a Peter?
Bill Skarsgård is the guy who plays it.
Yeah.
Alexander was in True Blood. Stellan. Peter sounds right. I think there is a Peter Skarsgård.
Who's like the fit one? He was just in Succession, and then he was in the Northman as a Viking.
That's Alexander. Yeah, that's Alexander. Peter Skarsgård is an actor.
Hey, look at that.
Oh man, his face is so familiar, but honestly, so what was he in? He was in Garden State, Kinsey. Jarhead is what I know him from Jarhead.
Is he a younger one or an older one?
He was in 2022 Batman.
Oh, okay.
Magnificent Seven. He was in that as well. So he is early 50s. Early 50s, born 1971.
Is Stellan the oldest of the bros?
I think Stellan is the oldest. Right. Yes.
What a fucking family, man. Like,
yeah.
And they're not it's not even like they were born in a country where acting is a thing. I mean, I believe they're from over in probably the Netherlands, Finland, one of those, Denmarks with the little they got like the umlauts and shit on their name.
Yeah. So actually they're not. So Alexander is Stellan's son.
No shit.
And so is Bill. So Bill and Alexander are both Stellan's.
So then
sons.
Peter and Stellan are brothers?
Perhaps.
Or Bob's uncle's cousin. Something like that's where we're at this point.
I don't know.
Anyways, I don't even know what the fuck we're talking about right now, but they're Swedes. There we go. Thanks, Bango and Mando.
They're Swedish. They're Swedish.
All I know is Stellan Skarsgård is fucking good at what he does, because I just rewatched Dune to get ready for tomorrow for Dune 2, and even though it's hard now that we have him in Star Wars, like I see Luthen a bit, even through all that big fat makeup and crap, but man, he is good. So is Alexander, man, and he is a specimen. All right.
Alexander was an HBO darling. He was in that show Generation Kill, if you've ever seen that, which was about the early 2000s invasion of Iraq, and then he was also in True Blood. He was one of the mains in True Blood. So, and then Stellan, for those of you who like older films, Good Will Hunting was the first time that I saw Stellan Skarsgård in a movie. Fantastic film.
And those for you that are Star Wars fans, Luthen Rael, his best performance ever. He should have won an Oscar for it, even though you can't. Yeah, Bango's right. Norse blood runs strong. No doubt about it. Hey, look at this. Are you watching Dune in 70? No, I'm doing we're catching the Dolby Atmos tomorrow. Not miss the IMAX one. The IMAX close to me still has the shitty straight upright seats, no reclining. It's kind of archaic, so I prefer the Dolby Atmos these days.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So here, some fans will love this, because fans love when they're told what type of Star Wars fan they are. So I appreciate Stellan for throwing this out there. But they hey man, what's Andor season 2 all about? He goes, it's the last season of it. Thank you. No shit. It ends where Rogue One starts, so it's up to that point. I think it will be very good, as already the first one was satisfying for me, because it's sort of Star Wars for grown-ups. Take that, all you people in like Andor. You're too stupid and juvenile to appreciate it. That's why you didn't like it, you dummies. Stellan said so. He goes on to say, it's a more realistic and complicated society that they're living in, and the claustrophobia of the fascist regime is palpable. I think we have a good season ahead of us. And he's right. Like, listen, I think Andor is a thing of beauty. It really is. And he's not wrong. I mean, throwing out it's for grown-ups, and man, that's a good way to troll some of the crazier Star Wars fans. But I think even Nick himself and others have brought it up. Maybe it was Beyond the Dune Sea. It's like Andor, and probably why some people didn't like it, it lacked the fantasy side of Star Wars, right, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think that was kind of my feedback, is like, it was a fantastic, semi-spy show that is set in the Star Wars universe. But yeah, I mean, it did lack what kind of sparks the fantastical and mystical side of Star Wars, for sure.
Yeah, so, Stellan's just reminding us that those of us that like that stuff, we're idiots. We're dummies, and we're child brain having people. So, thank you, Stellan. I love you. All right, moving on to Amandla. Amandla. One way to spell that name. Amandla Stenberg, who is the lead in The Acolyte, rumored to be coming out June 5, although I think that is false. So, she talks about, obviously can't say much, but this is kind of, I don't know really what she means by this or what we're going to see in the finished product, Nick, but she was discussing the fact that she had to shoulder what sounds like a heavy acting load for the show. She said, I have a really, really heavy load in the show, and I do not think she is talking about that type of load, you sick fucks. An abnormal load. Now, maybe that load, she's talking about that type of load, but what do you think she's saying here, man? Like, are we going to get lots of dialogue from her character, or is she just in every damn scene? Like, we never leave her. She drives the entire plot forward.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of speculation around what Amanda's role was going to be. And I think one of the things that we threw out in speculation may kind of line up with what she's saying here, which is that she may be in a position to where she's like a mole inside of the Jedi Order. That's also so that would like
two different performances. Okay.
Yeah. So like you're doing, your role as, a Jedi Padawan or whatever level they're at. And then you're also doing the role of whatever the Sith character is or the dark side character is. So you're playing, like you said, you're playing two roles, but because like you're doing it as kind of a double agent type of thing. So that's my first thought.
I like it. And that didn't even cross my mushy brain. So that's why we do this. I got to run this stuff by you so you get the more intelligent takes. But I think you might be spot on. It's just the fact that she's not just playing a character. She's going to be playing a character that has more than one side, like a duality, where it really is. As an actor, you pretty much are playing two different roles, even though it's the same named character. All right. Nick, she then went into explaining a bit about the tone of the galaxy during this era. I mean, we were initially told it was 80 years prior. I've seen some people now say 50. Who the fuck knows? We just know it's prior to the Phantom Menace.
I thought that,
by multiple decades, High Republic type of shit.
Yeah.
So here's what she says. In the context of the Star Wars universe, it's a time of great peace, theoretically. It's also a time of an institution. And it's a time in which conceptions around the Force are very strict. And I think that what we're trying to explore within our show is when an institution has a singular conception of how power can be used, we try to provide a lot of different perspectives and answers to that question. The idea is to kind of honor the ethos of Star Wars and ideas around the Force and also challenge them, hopefully harmoniously. So to me, she sounds like she's essentially saying, like, look, the Jedi are so fucking stuck in their ways, set in their ways. There is no room for growth, for explorations of other uses of the Force, other sides of the Force, if you will. And that's ultimately, as we know, is what's going to lead to their downfall and the rise of the Sith.
Yeah. I really like the way that she described it. This time in the galaxy, for those of you who are up to date on the High Republic stuff, which I'm not, so like I don't know all the happenings, but I know that there's the faction out there called the Nihil that's been kind of, causing issues in the galaxy. That in the Jedi were diverting some resources to deal with them. There was like that whole plot line with like the sentient plants or whatever. I don't know if that's still going on. That was causing some problems. So there were some antagonistic forces out in the galaxy, but it was definitely a peaceful time in terms of like the Sith Jedi conflict, like open war, at least, from what was, this is pulling from timelines that are no longer canon anymore. But like the last time that there was open war between Jedi and Sith factions,
thousands.
Prior to the Phantom Menace was like 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. So it was a long time. So it's very interesting that, she mentions that, and is in line with what we're thinking about in terms of High Republic right now. What I do like is the idea that they're going to be challenging the way that the Force is being handled. And this actually kind of feeds back into what I was talking about for her character, because if she is a double agent, then she would be very, very keen on the tenets that Jedi teach you and how restrictive they are in terms of like, well, you can do this, but you can't do that. I mean, just think back to the prequels when they're saying to Anakin, like, well, you know, don't project out into the future. It's all bullshit. Or you can't do that. Like, you can't learn this, or this isn't something that's going to be taught to you by the Jedi, or you're only allowed to use powers this way.
Yoda's still sitting around that table, man. So, and he holds on to those rules all the way up through the fall of the Order.
Yeah. So the fact that, you know, this other faction that Amanda's character is probably going to be working with is looking for different perspectives and trying to, like, essentially like pushing the boundaries of how the Force can be used is very interesting. And it almost makes it seem like they may not be expressly like bad dark side users.
That's what I was going to run with. I'm glad you kind of kicked that off. I'm kind of thinking now, Nick, it may be as simple as, you know, some of the stuff Anakin was looking to do, save people from dying. You know, I believe she's going to have a sister in the show. It could be something very simple that she knows if she could use the Force to intervene, she could save somebody. But obviously that's going to go against the ethos of the Jedi at this time, how they believe the Force should be used. So not as hard as Anakin, but that could start pushing her to start to seek out other information about the Force, which could lead her to other factions that, you know, are dabbling in no Force powers of that era. And like Nick said, she's not ultimately bad at heart. She just knows there's more to her abilities and she wants to explore them, yet the Jedi are kind of handcuffing her. Yeah.
And I think that, you know, like even going further into, you know, my speculation about her being a double agent, what we could be seeing in this show, which would be super interesting, is the idea that there were these Jedi that kind of drifted away from the Order. Like if you went back to old canon, there were, I think it was 10 lost Jedi or something like that during the time of the Grand Republic. And like Count Dooku was one of them, but it was this group of Jedi that essentially like splintered themselves off of the Order and decided like, hey, I don't want to be a part of this Order anymore for whatever reason. Like, could we be seeing some sort of similar storytelling in the Acolyte, where it's like, it's not just Amanda's character. There are other Jedi within the Order that are like, that know that there's knowledge out there that they could be getting and learning from and putting into action, but they're being prevented from doing that. So it could be that, like, you know, maybe it's a group of Jedi that are clandestinely going out and learning about, you know, forbidden knowledge in the Force from, you know, farther reaches of the galaxy that haven't been explored yet, or that have been cut off from standard Jedi travels or something like that. And you know, that leads back into maybe they're not bad. They're just they're trying to expand their knowledge, and then they become marked, you know, enemies of the Jedi or something like that.
Well, and we all know, as good as your intentions are, the moment you start playing with fire, in this case, darker aspects of the Force, you never know where it can take you. Like it. Yeah. I mean, look at what it did to our boy. Our boy, he just said, hey, I wasn't corrupted yet. I was just conflicted. And within the snap of a finger, he becomes a mass murderer. Yeah. One taste of the dark side, he wipes out his entire Order, murders kids, murders all the heads of the Separatists, gets himself almost murdered, and then continues to murder for another 20 plus years.
You know, I would hope that this series takes it a little bit less. It's not a 0 to 100.
Hey,
as
hear
that,
me out here, because when Connor was on the show from At Beyond the Dune Sea, we for whatever reason we're talking Acolyte, and he kind of threw out there. He's like, "Listen, what if the Acolyte doesn't make it out, and the Jedi actually do kill her?
But, it's highly likely.
But they sweep it all under the rug because they want to keep the the image going that, yeah, there's no dark side in the galaxy. We're Jedi. We kick ass. There's nothing wrong with our order. None of our members would ever go rogue. And I kind of dug that. Like, yeah, that's just where their hubris really starts. Like, hey, we'll just sweep this under the rug. No one has to know about this acolyte. It's just a blip. Just a blip.
Yeah.
There's no Darth Plagueis out there. There's no Sidious coming down the line. We're good. We took care of it. Everyone go back to wearing your gold robes and shut the fuck up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's very possible, because as we've said with everything, with all of the content that either leads into
Skywalker Saga is the equalizer.
Yeah, like you either die or you disappear. Like, so these characters, whoever they may be, when we're introduced to them, will either end up dead or disappear.
I love. That's fantastic. I can't wait till the Mandoverse runs ends so Nick and I can do our who died and who disappeared themselves before the sequel trilogy, because that's really where we're at. That's our marker all the way up to the sequels. Who's alive, who's dead, who disappeared. I like that. Who disappeared.
Yeah.
Who conveniently got narratively disappeared. Oh, shit. All right, well, there you go. A little Acolyte news and Andor news, even though it's not news, but we like to disguise it as such. It is Bad Batch time, my friends. That's right. Matt and Nick, we do our patented full deep dive breakdown every week, only a few hours after a new episode drops. This episode was titled A Different Approach. Only one this week, which kind of a bummer based on the end. I was ready to sit down for at least another 25 minutes to see where things would go next, but just kind of getting into it, my brief review here. My full one is out on youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show, by the way, so go check that out. But quite frankly, really enjoyed the episode. It started a bit slow for me, not gonna lie, not like filler slow. I was getting annoyed at Omega. I'm sorry, I gotta say it. Like, sometimes her Dudley do-right shit is a little too much for me, especially in the scenario they're in. Early on, I was kind of buying in the crosshair. Like, what are we doing? We are marked. You are literally the most valuable person in the galaxy. We need to just worry about getting the fuck out of here. She's worried about bringing dogs, paying off bribes, paying off little bum kid bribes. It just got to a point. It's like, Omega, come on. When are you going to have to make that hard fucking choice that your brothers all have had to make? Enough of this. You can't save everybody all the time. We learned this last year with tech. Sometimes you've got to make the hard choice. So that stuff was bothering me a little bit. But once we got into the bar, loved the tension that was felt during the, once the Imperial captain came in, kind of shaking him down like a gangster mafioso. But obviously the highlight of this episode, what really made it kind of stand out for me, being a girl dad, was that end, man. I mean, that reunion was as fucking perfect as you can make it. The music that Team Kiner used was, again, brilliantly woven into the animation to just kind of heighten the emotions you feel there. And like I said, as a father, especially to a little girl, seeing her run up and Hunter kneeling down, I was like, oh, God damn, I love Star Wars emotions. Shit's getting me a little misty right now, and that's how I know. I was like, you know what? There's some good fucking content today. So ultimately, really enjoyed the episode. Can't wait to see where things go next, and I really wish we got some more today, because that end and the way Crosshair was kind of iced out by his bros, I really want to see what they say. So that's kind of my quick take there, Nick. How about you?
Yeah, episode was solid, self-contained. Definitely, picked up where we thought it would, kind of right after the escape happened. I think that it's interesting to me that, right now the pace seems a little slow. I'll just put it like that. Like the show is on, limited time. We know that this is the last season. We know that we are, not going to get any more after that. And we only got 9 episodes left. So it was interesting to me that they didn't delve into any of the other storylines that were going on here.
Oh, yeah, good point. I forgot to bring that. I didn't appreciate that the lore was more or less just glossed over.
Yeah, it was, obviously they're need to do some relationship building between Crosshair and Omega, and that's what this
of course
episode was primarily focused on. But I do think that there could have been value from check-ins back at Tantus. I know that we had the brief, scene between Hemlock and Nala Se, and we saw Hemlock's team kind of show up at the crash shuttle. But yeah, it like overall, I thought it was good. Cool to see the card game. Like you said, that was kind of the centerpiece of this episode, was like that showdown with Omega essentially winning enough money to get them out, and then obviously having the issues crop up with the Imperial officer.
How about that guy? I mean, that is one of my notes here to bring up with you. I thought that captain in the little bite size that we got him was the perfect portrayal of Imperial corruption. I mean, the motherfucker rolls into the bar, shakes him down just like a mob boss would, gambles with someone, then when he loses at the end, he's like, oh yeah, you got to pay the gambling fee because this is illegal. Steals their pet, and then when they want the pet back, they're like, oh yeah, no animals on here, you got to pay that fee too. I mean, he was just, that's like as Imperial as it gets, and we're still only maybe 2 years in. Like, it took no time at all to get scumbags into the Imperial officer ranks to just start shaking down all these planets and towns across the galaxy. It's like vintage Empire. You gotta love it. Yeah.
I mean, they're just out from the go. Like they're not messing around. I mean, it
really is. It's the fucking mob, and this guy just excelled at being an Imperial pig.
Yeah. So, I think the use of that character was done really well. Obviously, I think the theme here is Omega essentially trying to maintain her innocence. Like that's why she's pushing back on Crosshair every time Crosshair's like, look, our lives are on the line. We need to be able to act fast, and what you're doing is taking too long. Like we do have to remember that she's still a kid. Like she's, trying, even in this, in this universe and what she's already been through, she's trying to maintain some level of innocence about herself. And I guess is just not ready to commit to just wantonly killing everybody in front of her to get her way really quickly. So
I know. Hey, she got there eventually, right? I mean, she eventually, when she knew she was toast, she's like, all right, let's try your method this time.
Yeah, when Betcha went missing, it was just like, you know what? Maybe it is time to just kill everybody.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it was a relatively self-contained little story here. You can see where it's setting up because, Omega has already mentioned to Crosshair, like, hey, we have to go back to Tantus. We can't just leave everybody.
That's kind of what I was feeling last week. I mean, Nick, at this point, I don't think she's going to get recaptured. I think she's going to convince everyone who's like, why the fuck will we go back there? Her mission from here on out is to get everyone that is freed to go with her and release those motherfuckers.
Yeah, I think so. So instead of it being like we have to go back, it is more of a, well, we got to go back because Omega's making us go back type of deal.
Yeah, it's the Dudley Do, right? But, as I kind of said in my official review, it's like, I guess we kind of need these types of characters here, like just pure heroes. I just, at one point in time, I know Bango, he left, but, maybe she has to make the hard choice in the finale. That would be a nice touch where Omega finally has to experience a little bit of a sacrifice and loss based on her choice, not someone else's. All right. Yeah. So, all right, let's rattle through some of the top moments, and we'll check in on some Easter not eggs and references. But, top moment, we've been kind of talking about it, but I really did like the card game for mostly what I was talking about. It was not necessarily the card game, Nick. It was the standoff after, when he's shaking him down. Mm-hmm. And the level of tension the writers were able to build up, and then Kiner coming in, and I don't know if you heard it, but literally just used like a heartbeat. It was just like a do-do, do-do, do-do. And it was perfect for this moment, because you're like, all right, is Crosshair just going to start shooting? Is this guy really just looking for a fee, or does he know something? So I thought it was for the first time this episode, you finally kind of ratcheted up that anxiety as the viewer, going like, things could get a little squirrely here. And I credit that to the sleazebag Imperial captain. perfectly scripted, but probably even more so to what Kiner chose to do in this scene in terms of the score.
Yeah. I think that, this was kind of that pivotal moment where it really did come down to like, is Crosshair going to trust Omega through the whole thing, or is he going to lose it and really start to just fire it off? And I think that they used that moment well to show that even though it only has been, a little bit of time since these two have had to work together, that they're already, there's already some level of trust between them. So I think that they did a good job there. And I mean, this whole episode really did a good job of that relationship building in a very short amount of time. So I will give the writers credit on that.
I forgot to bring that up. I agree. I think the dynamic feature in this episode between Omega and Crosshair was fantastic. I mean, it starts his usual kind of gruff and icy way, but by the end, he's realizing like, holy shit, she's a functional unit member. I mean, like, we're getting shit done. Her plans are working, and when I'm needed, I'm needed. And they did work well together. They both got off of Tantus, which no clone has been able to do. They've now secured another transport to get away from the Empire on Luau, and they ran into their bros. And we'll talk about that scene coming up here in a second, but they really did have a very interesting dynamic, and you can slowly see through Omega Crosshair becoming more empathetic. I don't know. I mean, a little less 1-0 black and white. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I also like, given Crosshair's recent history, like he kind of knows that like he can't go back to the Empire. Just straight up, right. They're going to murder him. And if he doesn't work his way back into the good graces of the Batch, and right now getting into the good graces means getting into Omega's good graces, then he's just kind of fucked. Like if he shows up to the Batch meeting and Omega's like, yeah, this motherfucker almost got us killed, like he's just
she just stabs him in the neck. Just like,
yeah, like it would be like they would either kill him or they would abandon him. So like he really has like very few options in terms of how he can act now, because he has very little opportunities in front of him. It's either like hook back up with Hunter and Wrecker and the rest of his allies, his former allies, or he's literally on his own trying to not get killed by the Empire.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, if you remember this entire exchange, she essentially says like, hey dude, you know what, go fuck yourself, here's the credits, I don't give a shit, go save yourself, I'm Omega, I'm gonna do the right thing. And it worked. Like she's working on him. So I think these two are gonna have a very special send off. They're kind of angling this like last year, how Omega and Tech spent a lot of time together, which we're seeing the fruits of that now. I mean, Omega, she can fly ships. She knows all the clone commands. That's all because of Tech. Like, I don't know if people remember that, but I mean, her and Tech were kind of buddies, especially after Echo left in season 2. So yeah, I don't know. I just, you're right. These two together in this episode was definitely a highlight. Another top moment was I was a big fan of the escape. I mean, let's be real. We got little brains over here at SWTS. So whenever you see some action, some bright lights, laser blasters, stormtroopers in action, stormtroopers and ponchos in action, it's exciting. So I did enjoy the escape. I liked how it started, where they're just kind of one of those what do they call it, a standoff, Mexican standoff.
Yeah.
And that's when Omega is finally like, yeah, you know what, Crosshair, it's time to do it your way. And, we get into the shooting, the release of all those animals, and just straight chaos. I think someone was calling it like Jurassic Park Star Wars. And then, I'm not going to lie, but Homeboy with the goggles wearing a poncho could be my new favorite stormtrooper. I mean, How great does that look? Stormtroopers and ponchos. And then the best part, Nick, is when they take off. He just sits there like an idiot eating exhaust, like spaceship exhaust. You can see like the heat waves radiating off his face mask. And then when she hits go, he gets his ass shot off the Sentry Tower. I don't know. I thought it's like, that's a nice touch. That's why you gotta love cartoons. You can do little gags like that and get away with it.
You know what that look reminded me of? It reminds me of Scav Ray when she has her helmet on at the beginning.
Oh yeah. I see that. Yeah, his helmet in particular for sure.
Yeah.
You know who else was wearing a poncho like this? Now I remember Rex in season 1 of the Bad Batch. I think he showed up in that poncho, in a poncho like this, but. Yeah, Poncho Trooper that was a nice little treat in this episode. And last top moment here, and man, it was a banger. I loved how they did this. I loved how they shot it. Obviously, I love how they scored it. But I'm talking about the reunion. You know, at first you have to wonder: are they really going to be there? Is that them, or someone already gotten their ship and they're kind of setting it up? And then, you know, you got the shot of Omega just looking at the open door on the Marauder, and then the big guy comes in, you get the silhouette, and he's like the big dummy, gets all happy. We've crossed the galaxy 4 times looking for you. And then you hear Hunter 5. And it's just like, man, how touching. It's just to see the way that they light up. These gruff motherfuckers, these guys built and bred to be expert warriors, just melted when she showed up. And you gotta love that Hunter's like, hey, we were all over the galaxy, and it was you were the one that saved yourself and found us, kind of highlighting how skilled she's become and how adept she's become at being just like they used to be and they were trained to be. The emotions were impossible to shake, especially if you're someone with young kids, a young daughter. It's just like, this is why I love Star Wars. It's when I have emotional reactions to the point where me, as a 43-year-old white man who was trained to never have emotion, never let anyone know you're upset, it's impossible to block those watching this type of stuff. I mean, especially Hunter. Being a dad and knowing what it's like to kneel down so you're eye level with the little people, it was just fantastic. And Nick, I don't know if you picked up on it, but I think what made it even more emotional is what Kiner did with the score. So he kind of was using a different background track when she first lands and sees Wrecker and gives him a hug. Then it just perfectly blends into Omega's theme when she's with Hunter. But then as the other reveals about to happen, it slides into Crosshair's very noticeable, somewhat eerie and sinister theme. And we kind of get that shocking reaction to him being her partner from his brothers. So I love the reunion. I thought it was fantastic. It paid off on their separation. It felt authentic. It felt like each character was experiencing those emotions at the time.
Yeah, no, I mean, the reunion was fantastic. The exclusion, well, I wouldn't say exclusion, but definitely the ire thrown towards Crosshair, like, is a really good, like, obviously it's an enticing way to end it. Like you said, you see the end of this episode and you're like, fuck, I wish I could watch.
They look like they want to rip him to pieces, like systematically kind of Wookiee him.
I mean, dude, and rightfully so, Okay,
I mean, let's get into this, because I'm not going to lie. I was a bit shocked at how icy they were, solely because in season 2, he literally reached out with code 99 or whatever to kind of help them. Is like, that didn't buy him any good grace. No, it doesn't appear so.
I think what it bought him was, we didn't shoot you as soon as we walked off this ship. Like, that's what it bought him. Because if he didn't do that and he just showed up, and the last things that he did, in the minds of Hunter and Wrecker was betray the batch and put them in situation and actively put them in danger in a way that got their, one of their brothers killed, then he was dead on sight. Like, he was Wrecker food on sight. Like, Wrecker would have run him down and fucking just ripped his head off.
Rip him in half like Deadpool got ripped.
And the fact that they have just scowled at him and not physically harmed him is probably what that bought.
Wrecker just throws a missile at him. He pulls it out of his backpack. I love the wide shot, by the way. Just kind of, it's yes, it was physical distance, but it also represents the emotional distance between these characters at this point in time. Because if you're on the live stream, I mean, we know their ships were pretty much right next to each other, but it looks like they're miles apart, and that's where we're at least with the bros here. So
exactly,
I was like, hey guys, you know, he did try to kind of key in what the Empire was doing. I know after he almost killed you all and tried to kill Omega and that stuff, but come on, you know, he had a change of heart. People can change. Show him a little love, and we know. Listen, it's going to happen just because Omega's there. I mean, Omega is the peacemaker. She's going to kind of mediate this tension, and by next episode, they'll probably all be on that mission we saw in the trailer. To be honest with you, I mean, it looks like we're headed that way. So,
you know what I think is gonna like. Unfortunately, I think we're going back to Pabu in the next episode. It hurts me to say that.
You think?
But it makes the most sense because, like, where else do they really have to go? I mean, like, they've just come together, so now it's like the regroup and like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
Time.
So I got you. So they all go there and they're like, all right, we did it. Problem solved. Save the day. We're done. And Omega's gonna be like, nope, we're not even close to done because all of our bros are on that mountain.
Exactly. And who else are there? The little clone boys that, you know, so it's not only going to be like, well, we have to go figure out what to do. Then the clone boys are going to figure out like, oh, all of our clone brothers are at this facility. We got to go help them. And then that's what it's going to turn into.
Yeah. I think, you know, we might as well just speculate now. We'll do eggs and references next. But I think you might be spot on. It's like, let's go to Pabu and now the team's back together. Though, you know, the dads are going to be like, hey, we're good. We're safe. We need to save other clones who get, you know, don't worry about Tantus. And Omega's going to keep driving that issue to the point where they're like, all right, we gotta get Rex. We got to get Echo. We got to get them back. And we got to start planning for what we need to find Tantus. And then, here we go. All right.
Yeah.
Because it's like, now that they're all together, all the good guys are together, the main good guys, that's our narrative vehicle. So are they really going to spend a lot of time just with Hemlock and Nala Se again? Probably not. Like, and that kind of bums me out because that's the lore I want to learn about, but it really won't make a lot of sense to spend too much time with the Empire at this point in time outside of their plotting and planning to hunt down Omega.
Yeah, and what I'm interested in on that side, on the Imperial side, is the one question that we brought up last week and we've talked about a couple of times is, you know, now that Nala Se is in lockup, like she is essentially like her death warrant has been signed. Like,
yeah, I mean, Hemlock says, like, yeah, listen, I can't really tell you what your future is going to hold, but we'll get Omega back. Yeah.
What I'm wondering is like, is this when she uses the Boba Fett bargaining chip?
Okay,
you know, like,
I'm glad you're going here, because I was kicking the tires on this with Connor from Beyond, and he made a good point. And I want to kind of see what you think of this. You know, we know they're both unaltered clones, but when we use the term unaltered, it kind of falls a bit short with Omega because she is a female versus a male. And it does seem like Nala Se she clearly has feelings for Omega, but why? It's almost starting to feel like Nala Se has purposely done something with Omega for a reason that may serve her or the greater galaxy. That's not clear because we know she's special. But what do you think about that? Like Boba isn't the same because he essentially wasn't Nala Se's personal clone toy.
Yeah, I mean it could come down to like, you know, something that Nala Se had either, you know, done to her during her a growth period. I don't know what to call it.
That's kind of what we're thinking here. Like, yes, she was unaltered from Jango outside of the sex, but over those years when she was working with Nala Se, she was doing stuff. For a reason. I mean, I think Connor and those guys are like, you know, does Nala Se look at Omega as a kid? Is that her kid? I mean, is that Is that why she's protective? Is that why she made her special? I mean, in this episode, and we just figured Nala's, blowing smoke up his ass, but she's awesome, by the way. I love Nala saying the fact that she's monotone and just bitch slaps people in a monotone delivery. And she's like, yeah, Nick, you're a piece of shit. And it actually sounds like she said, hey, man, you're a piece of shit. I love it. It's perfect. Yeah. But anyways, she calls Omega an aberration. Clearly, probably, not playing into Hemlock's guess that, oh yeah, hey, you did something special to her. She is my secret. But it may also be slightly true. She is a slight aberration from Django. Yeah. But whatever Nala did to her, that's why she is able to receive the Force. No, you're
100% right about that. Like,
it cleans up the Boba thing, because I that was bothering me. It's like, come on, this is stupid. But it's like, all right.
But it's also like, if you're Nala Se, and they now know that Omega, her blood is working.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
Would you not, as Nala Se, be like,
throw him under the bus?
Yeah, just be like, hey, look, there's another unaltered clone out there that's way easier to find than Omega.
You may have solved the secret into how we get him on the show. Technically he could be one of Hemlock's operatives. Hemlock dropped that in this episode. I don't know if anyone picked that up. He's like, hey, don't worry. He's like, activate the operatives, which is probably going to be bounty hunters, people like Fennec, Cad, maybe Boba. But I like Nick's way to get Boba in. That would be kind of cool. Like, Nala knowing that he's not going to work, but it would be a pretty solid pitch to Hemlock. Like, hey, listen, dude, I don't know if you knew this or if you guys blew up all the fucking records, but there was another unaltered clone. It was Django's son. His name's Boba. I think you dickheads have him locked up in a prison right now for some train heist he tried to pull off.
Like, I just don't, like, for me, if you're Nala Se, that is the easiest way out.
No, you're right.
You tell the guy, it's like, you want to know why it works? She's unaltered. She's an unaltered clone. There's another one out there that is actually even further unaltered than she is, and it's Boba Fett. And you could literally call this motherfucker up on the phone. He is a readily available bounty hunter, or he's in your custody.
Yeah, just say you got some work, and he will deliver himself to you.
And at the very least, what it does is it buys time. Like, even if they're like, yeah, we got Boba Fett in lockup, we can get to him in a week. Like, that buys Omega a week of time where they're not solely focused on her.
I don't know, man. I love what you're selling here, which means
but I don't think it's going to happen.
There's no fucking chance in hell, man. Anytime either one of us has a good narrative idea, you can guarantee, take it to the bank, stone cold pipe lock, it's not happening.
Yeah. And like, I don't know if it's because, like, we are assuming that the blood is working because it's unaltered clone DNA. They haven't said that. They haven't said why Omega's blood is the one that's working.
That's just the one variable we know. There has to be another variable that Nala has introduced.
Yeah. So if it is more around, whatever happened to Omega or whatever Nala Se did to Omega during those years as her apprentice, then yeah, obviously. But if I'm in lockup and I can sell a reason to the people that have me locked up to, like, hey, don't fucking kill me yet because I have more information.
Yeah. Dude, I love it. I think it would make even more sense than bringing him as a bounty hunter, because he's still like a pup. I mean, he's Omega. He's a pup, man. He's a teen. I know he's rolling around with R and Bosk and them at this point, but he's like their mini boss leader. It would look weird. So I think Nick's idea is fucking killer, and I'm with Bat. Like, we said this when we were doing our wants and predictions for the season. Boba has to be in it, man. You can't just, hey, the Alpha and the Omega. It's like, no. And Nick, you got it, bro. So let's just delete it. It's not going to happen, but that would be the perfect way to do it. The only other thing
that I could think of for the Alpha Omega thing is if they have, like, Jango Fett's head stored somewhere. Like, and they just take his blood directly from his fucking head. I don't know. Because the Alpha, to me, like we've been saying, and like you've been saying, is Boba. Mm-hmm. So, like, there's nowhere else to go with it, and you've already brought it up. So like,
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I
Bat's
don't know.
thinking we may get him introduced with Ventress. All right, take it. She used to roll in that circle. You never know.
yeah, I mean, she could be, related, or she could run in that circle
Yeah,
now that she's been resurrected or whatever.
I'm with everyone else. I'm Team Boba. It just makes too much sense to come in. You can't introduce the fact that he has a twin sister and then they just never interact. That's poor. That is poor writing. That is not good. All right.
Yeah.
So let's just keep our fingers crossed
we'll see.
in pretend land we get Nick's speculation in how Boba is brought into the show, because I think that's the most intelligent way to do it. Makes the most sense story-wise, and it lines up with existing and future canon. So all hail young Nick. I had an idea, but now it's gone, so who gives a shit? Real quick, eggs and references here. The card game, man, I mean, the cards did kind of had the angled edges like a sabacc deck, so I just ran with they're playing sabacc, and we're all just
I think it is.
say yes, they were.
Did I think I showed. I bought a sabacc deck when I was.
Intern bought me one a few years back, and I still have yet to learn how to play it. So
yeah, I want to play. I know you can play it with two people. And I
bet it's a decent game. Speaking of decent games that involve cards. And Nick, you may be on this because I don't know like how much you get into the gaming scene and what's trending currently, but apparently this Bala Toro game, it's like a rogue poker deck builder on Steam. Apparently, in its first day, it sold 300,000 copies. And people are like, "Oh, I've spent 40 hours in the demo and now 20 hours in the real game." It's just it sounds like it's poker, but it's not poker. So.
Interesting. What's it called again?
Balatoro, I believe.
Bala Toro. Yeah, I'll check it out.
One man development studio, and it sounds like he's probably going to change his life with it. So.
Yeah, it seems if he sold 300,000 immediately.
But if anyone needs like a reason to dust off their Steam Deck, it sounds like this is the game to go with right now.
What I have been playing recently is I got that game on PS5. It's called Banishers, Ashes of New Eden or something like that, which is like an action RPG. I played a little bit of that, so I've been playing that, and then just like bouncing between like mobile stuff.
I'm still on FFXVI and digging it. Like I really like the story. It's very in depth. It's very that's stupid to say fantasy based with Final Fantasy. No shit, asshole. It's more, Nick, it's kind of like more kings and queens type of shit for a Final Fantasy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, hey, there's this kingdom.
That lines up more with like Final Fantasy 12.
Okay, there you go.
Like Final Fantasy 12 was similarly.
Yeah, it's
like
not like 7's my favorite, where it's just you're in a city, you got a big evil corporation raping the planet. I mean, and speaking of that, I wish I was done with XXVI because I think the second installment of Final Fantasy VII Remake dropped this week, and I love that shit because as we discovered, I can turn on a mode where I only have to walk my character. That's it.
There you go.
I just have to hit go, and it does everything else for me. Anyways, back on track. The second little reference here, and it came with the demise of the captain, but we had some Rathtars in those cages, people.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Just like Han and Chewie were transporting in TFA when, they're messing with those two gangs. They let them loose to help aid in their escape. But it was nice to get that. And I do watch these early in the morning. My brain could be playing tricks on me, but I swear, and I'm gonna have to go back and listen a few more times. But when they let all the animals out, I swear you hear some porgs in there, like that.
It would not surprise me, dude.
I swear they snuck that sound effects in there. So there you go. That is the SWTS full deep dive breakdown. We gave you the eggs, the references, the top moments, the reviews, speculations. Nick even laid the groundwork for next week's episode. So you can't do much better than that. That's why there is always time for Star Wars time. All right. Yeah, Nova's got a good point here. I can't see Omega liking Boba much, though. Yeah, they're two wildly different personalities at this point in time. Boba literally hates clones, like fucking can't stand them, and he's been raised by bounty hunters his whole life. So
yeah. There is one piece of news that popped up since we have started this podcast that I dropped it in the general channel, Matt. So if you want to pull it up,
yeah.
But that first person shooter Mandalorian game that we just heard about last week canceled already. Respawn Star Wars FPS is canceled.
Pulling it up now.
And this is a result of EA laying off 670 people. Which is
speaking of that, man, tech is getting drilled right now.
Yes, it is.
I got a buddy at PlayStation, and they just fucking whacked a ton of people.
Yeah, I saw that as well. A lot of like Sony.
Yep, Serious. I had another buddy there. They just had to whack a lot of tech. Yeah, I don't know if it's all from AI or better workflows or just the loss in revenue, but man, it's rough out there for you geeky motherfuckers.
I mean, the video game landscape in general is not good. So much so that like I don't know how many people here follow it tangentially or however. Microsoft is now basically saying like we're just going to release all of our first party titles on PlayStation.
No, I heard that, but isn't Sony already just saying PlayStation 5 is dead? Like they're done with it. They're going to start looking towards the next one.
I think that like generationally, they're definitely starting to like look forward to PS6 or whatever it's going to be.
Extremely short compared to the PS4. They're still making games for it.
Yeah, but say the PS4 gen was very quick. And here's my issue with it is that there hasn't been a step up in like user tech, like at home user technology that would necessitate a new console. Like these consoles that we have now aren't even maxed out to the point to where like, you know, your at home stuff can't like, you know, keep up with it or whatever. Like, I think they said that both of these consoles were supposed to be capable of 8K. We don't even have 8K user TVs out yet. And if they do, they're crazy expensive. Like these consoles can do 120 frames apparently. And we haven't unlocked that yet. So yeah, I don't know if it's just a short console
120 definitely
or what.
Like if you have the right gear. Like my TV now, I just had to get the new one because I'm a dick face. It's OLED, it's beautiful, but every port supports
120,
the HFF and the VRR.
Yeah, like my TV has 120 frame, like all that good stuff.
I'm an old fuck. I grew up with pixel games. So the fact that we've gotten to where I envision things were going, I was like, how much better can it get? I don't give a fuck about light rays. Okay?
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck about shiny water. I just want the game to be fun and the story to be interesting. So I don't know if I am going to need the next consoles.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like primarily for me now, I'm playing mostly on PC because PC gets everything. Like even Sony exclusives are coming to PC more regularly now. So like, you know, consoles are not as important as they once were.
Have you heard about this one that Devin's talking about? Because I've seen a lot and I almost want to just look at it. Helldivers 2.
Oh, dude, I've heard incredible things about Helldivers 2. I haven't played it yet, and I've seen some people play it. But from what I've seen and heard, it's essentially Starship Troopers, the video game. Even though there is another Starship Troopers video game that just released, this is just like super polished Starship Troopers.
They're like Helldivers. Isn't that kind of the ODST troopers from Halo, where they literally drop them from orbit? I need to check it out. I have a feeling it's probably not for me because I don't like to compete in games anymore. But if it's like a teamwork game or co-op, sure.
Yeah, it's a co-op game, and I think it's a lot like that one that you really got into for a while there. What was it? Like that something Riders? Outriders. I feel like it's similar to Outriders.
Well, shit, it's a sequel. I never even knew the fucking first. I thought the first Helldivers was like a retro game. Or am I on crack? Probably on crack. So who knows?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I gotta look this up. Helldivers.
Helldivers 1, 2015, PlayStation exclusive.
Oh no. The box art looks familiar.
the box art, like the box art for the first one feels very Halo, or like feels very Destiny, like Destiny Halo kind of, like Bungie basically. But yeah, I mean, like I've heard good things about it. I haven't played it yet. I think it's available on PC too. But yeah, that is another game that is getting a lot of hype.
Yeah,
but
look
I
at
think
this,
that,
this
like,
video, basically Starship Troopers extraction game.
Yeah, so I will say that, like, on the general like game industry right now, I think that what a lot of people are seeing, or what a lot of studios are seeing, is that people are just buying less games. Like, people aren't buying games as frequently, and they're tending to skew more towards like, you know, like live service games, which is why a lot of studios put emphasis on live service. That's why like Sony bought Bungie, was for their live service expertise, because that's what Destiny is. It's a live service game. So I think that there's not a lot of faith in the game industry right now that, like, the way that releases have been happening, like, you know, console exclusives and like single player story and stuff like that, is going to be the way that the industry moves. So there's been a lot of shakeups, especially at, you know, large scale developers like EA. Activision did layoffs. Like, Activision did like 3 rounds of layoffs over the last year. You know, obviously Microsoft has had layoffs. Sony's had their layoffs too. So, like,
what Nick is saying is we're all fucked. Have fun while you can, because the world's ending in a few months. Now, I mean, I've been watching this for a little bit. This looks fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's like it seems super fun.
I need to look into that. All right, Devin, way to send us way off a schedule and track, pal.
Yeah.
Where's your buddy Props? He's probably acting in a Star Wars movie right now, or whining and dining with Lauren Mary Kim out on some set, or doing something fun, going to Lucasfilm sideshow. Look at this.
Yeah,
Justin used to sit around and listen to our 2 dumbasses. Now he's out there like mingling with Star Wars cast and crew. How about that?
Yeah, exactly.
Good for him.
Well, Matt, if you decide to pick this game up on PS5, let me know, because I haven't had a reason to buy it either, and it's multiplayer.
I'm like, I really want to finish Final Fantasy. I want to start 7, but this it looks like something I could really get into. So I'll slack you, bro.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Let me know if you want to play.
Good little impromptu news there from young Nick. Respawn Star Wars FPS is shit canned. Yay.
Yes.
But hey, they're working on the third Jedi game. Cool.
Yeah, they're still working on the Jedi series.
Black Panther and Iron Man, whatever. I guess we need those games as well. All right, man. What we got here? We're looking good on time. I like this. I like it. So yeah, we're through the Bad Batch. Love it. Don't forget to keep checking out our content throughout the week. I still try to release at least one short a day across TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. They're either going to be Bad Batch, or you never know, you might get some stuff from the archives when Nick and I were talking about the prequels, the sequels, the OGquels. You never know what type of content you're going to get from the SWTS. And that, my friends, takes us early into the fan segment. Nothing wrong with being early here. We do it every week. We actually have 3 ways to get involved now, technically, because I'm just selling on questions to us are also going to take place during the fan segment, because I forget every fucking start of the show to do it. So, with that being said, we will be posting or soliciting for questions each week. Please get involved. This is going to be on Instagram at StarWarsTime-Show. You just got to ask us a question. You can either DM us a question based on the prompt, or just answer in the little widget that they give you in the Instagram stories. So let's go ahead and get into that right now, Nick. We got 2 questions.
2 questions
from some of our diehards here. Let me go ahead and get those pulled up on screen. First one came from our buddy Bango31. Does the Mando / Bad Batch backfilling of the somehow Palpatine plot make it any less awful for you guys? Or is it still just dog shit ST storytelling?
Okay, so I'll put it this way: it needs to happen. Like, all this backfilling that's going on now needs to happen. What it's not going to change is the line read and how that comes across when you hear it.
Correct.
Like, it's just there's going to be nothing that changes how that moment feels in the film. But the storytelling that they're doing now is necessary for the audience, because if you really want to try to justify that moment and really break it down into like why it happened the way it happened, Poe doesn't know shit. Like Poe, what, like
the whole galaxy
like
didn't know. It was Fortnite. They're the reason we know.
Yeah. So like literally, the person who read the line is seeing this for the first time. Like literally is like, what do you mean Palpatine's back? So his read of it is literally like exasperation and what the fuck. He's literally like, well, somehow Palpatine returned. He's just fucking pissed and he's confused and he's angry. But it's that, like, whatever happens in Bad Batch and Mando and stuff like that, it's never going to change how that line is read, but it is giving valuable context for the audience, for everybody who doesn't live in Star Wars storytelling, of how this has happened. So it's important, it's necessary to fill in the gaps for everybody who's watching Star Wars to understand how it happened.
Yeah.
Sorry. But it's not gonna make the line read any better.
Yeah, everything Nick said is 100% correct, but it's still dog shit storytelling that we even have to backfill the Emperor coming back to life into a defective clone body that's attached to a mechanical arm on some random hidden planet. But Nick's correct. So it ultimately, to answer your question, Bango, I love the backfilling. That's good storytelling. What we now have existing in the sequel trilogy with him even returning still is dog shit.
Yeah.
Always will be dog shit. He should have never returned. Period.
Yeah, there's nothing that can be done about that now. I mean, it's just, you have to tell as good of a story as possible leading up to it. So when you get there, you're like, okay, well, I know what's happening. Like, I know what's going on. I know that this was part of his long-term plan from, like even right when the Empire started.
At least since 2018 or 2019. That was the plan. All right. Thank you, Bango. And we got another one from Rippick. We can always count on Rippick. Rippick is asking, if Vader shows up in Bad Batch, I'm guessing, or learns of Project Necro, do you think he tries to foil Palp's cloning effort?
I don't think that. Well, one, I think that if he ever tried to foil Palpatine's cloning effort, like his like Project Necromancer, his literal like life, like life after Empire plans, Palpatine would kill him. Like that'd
probably be a bridge too far. For
Palpatine. I say that knowing that Palpatine literally just fucks with him,
right?
To just keep him on edge, and like I know everything that he does to him, just like either pain wise or everything else he does, Palpatine would kill him if he would try to fuck up his life after death plan, essentially. Yeah, there's no way that he would allow it to happen.
My take here is Vader wouldn't even let it cross. It might cross his mind, but he would slap himself immediately, because you understand, we're still dealing with very emotionally fragile Vader. I mean, he's only 2 years old, if that, at this point in time. He's still really fucked up. I mean, in the comics, he was so fucked up. After becoming Vader, Palpatine beat the shit out of him and took his weapons and made him go out and hunt down Jedi with no weapons. Basically saying, suck it up, pussy. This is what the Sith are like. So, at this point, I think Vader is still extremely shell-shocked and obviously angry, but still very, very fearful of his master, and he does not quite have the chutzpah in him yet to start kind of retaliating against the Emperor.
Yeah, I don't think so either, and
he's as lapdog as it gets at this point.
Yeah, like he's too fragile. And Palpatine knows that, and he's like leveraging that every way that he can. So yeah,
I mean, this is with hindsight, but in the comics, in between Empire and Jedi, he fucking goes to Exegol. It was like riding a big monster, and still doesn't blow up the lab. So once he sees Palpatine there, Palpatine's like, oh hey bitch boy, what are you doing? Go fuck yourself, or I'll kill you again. So yeah, Ain't happening. We're like, I'm at the point in the Vader run right now where you can start to see, even though by the time we're in Jedi, he's still telling himself and us that, no, I can't. I got to serve. I can never turn. They're making it in the comics. They're really showing like how hard Vader was trying before Luke helped him to take out Palpatine. Clearly, with the intent of becoming the most powerful being in the galaxy and not returning to Anakin. But by that time, by the original trilogy, Vader was done with this motherfucker, and he was over the lessons in pain. He was over being systematically broken down and built back up again so he could be stronger in the dark side of the Force. And he was trying, like, he was infecting himself with droids. He's infecting other legions with droids. He's joined the fucking Schism Imperial, whatever the hell that is. Some offshoot that Sly Moore's trying to start to kill Palpatine. So now, original trilogy, but during Bad Batch, no, he's very weak, still subservient and obedient, like Nick said. All right. Yeah. So that's, like I said, question to us of the week. It's always going to be open. You can ask us anything, kind of like they do on Reddit. But we also want your feedback. So we ask you a question a week, also on Star Wars Time Show over there on Instagram. It'll be in our stories. It will be in our profile grid. You just have to find it. So make sure you follow us, tap on notifications, and anytime you see our content, like it, share it, comment, so the algo thinks you actually like it, and you're not just doing it because I told you. So this week's question, to try and elicit a few more responses, because we all know people can't watch this shit right away on a Wednesday, I just put out there, what's your favorite or least favorite moment from Bad Batch Season 3 so far? So, Nick, we did get a little more action this week. Take it away.
All right. First up is Beyond the Dune Sea. So our podcasting buddies.
Star Wars bros supporting Star Wars bros.
Indeed. They say, small things. The show shines in the small things. But the stormy sport and the trench coats, we went from Jedi wearing clone armor instead of robes due to budget constraints and Clone Wars to faceless TKs dripping out with coats in Bad Batch, a fun flex and full circle moment.
Other people like the old, I guess I was calling him Poncho Trooper, but trench coat works too.
That works too.
It looks cool. Mega figure, sideshow, give me a Hot Toys. I'm out on that 112 shit.
I'm sure they're on it. Next up, Rippick Tan says, haven't watched E4 yet, but 1 through 3 had some great storytelling, and the Emperor's arrival was phenomenal. But I put laughing pretty hard at Omega Sparta kicking the mouse droid out of the elevator.
That was a good little moment. Those fucking mouse droids are always in the wrong place at the wrong time. So
they are, dude.
It's about time to get a boot to the face.
League of Extraordinary Sixthers says, I like seeing Omega coming into her own, being clever, resourceful, and the batch respect her decisions. Yeah.
She's an equal member. I mean, outside of age and size, she is 100% an equal contributor. She has, like we said, piloting skills, strategy and tactics now. She knows all the secret clone codes, and she's got fucking guts and heart. You can't fault her for that. I mean, she's going to be the one pushing these guys, these hardened warriors, to dive back into battle that they know they're probably going to die in. So,
yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I mean, it is nice seeing Omega like taking more proactive roles, and especially in the most recent episode being kind of the centerpiece for all of the action up until everything went wrong. So, good stuff there from League. Tones 1138, our good bud, says the reunion, man. What with the music and watching Omega reunite with Wrecker.
Us old guys can't handle these Star Wars emotions, Nick. You better never have a kid, dude. Never have a kid. It fucks you up.
It gets to you. But yeah, he says, talk about getting misty-eyed. Yeah. So yes, Tones and Matt both getting misty-eyed in that reunion. Nice to hear Harry Lloyd's voice. He played Viserys Targaryen in Game of Thrones.
See, I even looked up a Harry Lloyd, and it was like a...
Did it bring you to the Dumb and Dumber Harry Lloyd?
No, I didn't. He said Viserys. Was Viserys the old guy that just died, or is he like the crazy?
Viserys was Daenerys' brother, like the one that got killed.
Oh, the douchebag.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, then I was on the right one, but I didn't see the Game of Thrones credit, so I didn't mention it in my breakdown. So there you go, Tone. You got it.
Yeah. As Captain Man, another enjoyable episode this week. So there you go from Tones. Thank you very much.
Tones probably did like that. It seemed like the Imperials and even the droid bartender had that Northern England, almost Scottish accent going down.
Yeah. Maybe that's the locale that they were in. That they all have that accent. Yeah. Next up, 2797 Studios. Mr. Bat says, not a moment, but I love the constant tension so far.
Look at this guy. No moment. Yeah. He's just going for a theme.
All of it.
Dig it.
All of it. 4 episodes in and we haven't slowed down. I'm hoping for more of this. A lot more. Bango31 says, favorite part of the Omega Crosshair escape was the Omega Crosshair escape from Tantus. So that's the end of episode 3. The glee I felt at Batcher jumping onto the ship and making it out alive.
A dog lover.
Yeah, dog owner like me, yeah. Was childlike, and I loved it. The end of episode 4 was another great moment, nice blend of emotions. Can't really think of a least favorite part thus far. Every episode has been enjoyable.
That's right. Well, you don't have to drop negativity. I use or, right? I'm not using an and. So you can pick one or the other. But yeah, so try to imagine the way you all feel about watching that dog. Ratchet it up by 1,000 and think you're like watching your human do that type of stuff. Yeah. That's what this does. Like, I see my kid in Omega, I see myself in Hunter, and it just like, all right, thank you, Bango.
Fly. Indeed. Scion XTC says, from episode 4 specifically, the reunion at the end, the music was paired perfectly with each second of the scene. Yep. For the whole season so far, still being left with the feeling of not knowing what's going to happen, even though we can assume what will happen.
That is a true statement. I mean, we pretty much all know where it's going. We just don't know how, why, when, and how, or how, why, when, and how, and what, and where.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that
I went to school.
We all feel pretty confident about like what the end game of this season is going to be.
Dead.
Everybody's dead. Mount Tantus gets exploded. But hey, how do we get there is the question.
Yes, that's the fun.
So that's what Scion is thinking about now. Next up, Johnny Osage, Av. Johnny always likes to jump in on the questions. Appreciate it. Johnny says, I thought the episode was great. It had suspense with a little solo vibe.
Yeah, I get that.
When Omega and Crosshair were trying to get off world. Yeah, I mean, that definitely gave a little bit of a solo vibe, especially in the beginning of that movie. Omega the Hustler was a nice little ad. Crosshair getting to do what he does best and both finally escaping and reuniting with their brothers. I got a little choked up with the
Dude,
Omega.
Us old men are the worst.
Yeah, I know. Rekka Hunter reunion, but then that uncomfortable silence. I was expecting a line from Crosshair. No tears for me, brother.
Oh, I like that, Johnny. I like that. But I mean, that's almost too witty for Crosshair, you know?
Yeah, I would say that's not a Crosshair line. And we know bounty hunters are coming soon.
That's right.
So Johnny, looking forward to the bounty hunters coming in. And then Nova Toymation talked about Nova earlier in the show. Says, I really enjoyed seeing the ins and outs of the Mount Tantus lab and their daily routines. The build up to Omega's blood being tested was excellent. Yes, so this was episode 3, filled with tension. The tension that Scion was talking about in his response as well.
Centrifuge. Beep, beep, click. Beep, beep, click. Uh-oh, It's getting close. All right, thank you. So, hey, if you want to get involved in that, you want to have your comments read, potentially made fun of, make sure to check out StarWarsTime.show on Instagram. Typically, Wednesday morning, Tuesday nights. Never know when it's going to go up. Doesn't really matter. It gets buried right away anyways. So your best bet, follow, turn on notifications for @StarWarsTime.show.
Do that indeed. But we're now moving into our next part of the fan segment, which is the top 5 Star Wars fan artist features of the week. To get involved in this segment, there's one thing that you have to do, and then a second thing that you should do. The thing that you have to do is add tag @StarWarsTime.show on all of your Star Wars posts on Instagram. That is how you get into our tagged feed, and that is where I pull all of the top 5 from that tagged feed. And I will say, we've been seeing more tags recently. It's taken me a lot longer to scroll back a week in the tagged photos.
I forget you do the whole week, so yeah, you're probably scrolling for a few minutes there to get through all those.
Yeah, I mean, like I was putting together my top 5 this week, and I was like, oh wait, I've only gone through 2 days, and I still got a lot more to see. So yes, add tag at StarWarsTime.show on your post. That's how you get in for the top 5, and that's also how you get on Matt's radar for the daily features. And to another way to get involved in the daily features is to use the hashtag Star Wars Time Show on your posts. That will get you on Matt's radar for those daily features as well. So to kick off the top 5 for this week, we have at Nilla Gorilla _13. And Nilla Gorilla has hit us with a really fun Hu Yang Ahsoka shot. The poses here were super fun, and these two have a ton of history. So I thought that this shot here from Nilla Gorilla 13 with the Hu Yang and Ahsoka dual lightsaber duo pose was really fun. Yeah, I enjoyed this one a lot.
I just found like a whole new thing we can do in chat. I can start a Q&A or a poll right in the live stream.
There you go.
I'm not sure what the hell we do with it.
I don't know how we would use it yet, but I'm sure that we can find a way.
There. Maybe we'll start throwing up some polls. All right. Who we got?
So yes, Nilla Gorilla 13 hit us with the Hu Yang and Ahsoka dual lightsaber duo shot to kick off the top 5. And I mean, I like the snow bokeh in the background, a little bit of snowfall there.
That's right.
With a
got some practical
tree branch going on. Yeah.
Got some real set pieces. That Hu Yang figure is dope. I'm still holding my breath that they're going to actually do a 1/6 scale. It's like, Nick, they're doing everything they can except for the characters I want in 1/6 scale from Ahsoka. They just released the young Ahsoka this week, so I nabbed that one, but still no Balin, still no Shin, no Morgan, no Hu Yang.
They're waiting. They're going to drop all these on you at one time during holiday season, so they can get all your money.
Spend my cash. But no, that Hu Yang figure is great. So good work here from Nilla Gorilla _13.
That's right. Next up, we have
this shot's fucking dope.
This week was so hard to choose, honestly. I had like 10 shots.
You did well, though, because you got this one and another one in that I think had to be in this week.
Yeah, I felt like this was one that I was like, okay, I got to put it in. This is Ripik Tan at Ripik, RIPIK _ Tan on Instagram. And this is a shot of like, I don't even know what this is, like fully unleashed Luke Skywalker.
Oh yeah, dude.
Who's like,
he's got his,
like
his dad's clone armor on, like the shoulder pauldrons.
He's got both of his lightsabers. He's got his father, the Skywalker family blade, and he's got his green lightsaber that he built on his own. Like you said, he's got the clone armor pieces that he's whipping. Like this.
He's in like his whites, the white from Octo. It's just so cool. He's up in the air. He's slashing the slash effects, like the light trails that Ripik added in there are fucking great. The sparks are great. The poses on the stormtroopers. Nick, I'm not gonna lie. I went out of my way when I saw this to let Ripik know, like, dude, I think you just hit your PR right here. This is the best work I've ever seen you produce. And it shows. I mean, it's upwards of almost 1,000. So I know that's always fun when I used to do this, getting them up over 1,000 or close to, because then you know that it really was a banger. And this one is, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, everything. The posing, the effects, the outfitting on the Luke Skywalker figure.
Yeah, I mean, that's a full custom figure, man. I mean, it's like it's a bashed figure, but it's a great idea for a bash. I mean, it looks like you got TLJ or TFA Luke in there. You got Luke's head from probably Bespin Luke or Jedi Luke. They might be custom Clone Wars pauldrons. I mean, they look just like Anakin's. It's killer, man. So Ripik _ Tan, 2 thumbs up, bro. Unbelievable work here.
Absolutely. Next up, is a Lego shot from at Lego Shock 0451 official on Instagram.
All on an iPhone 11.
An iPhone 11 took this picture, and I gotta say, like, it's so cool. So it's like a recreation of the Mandalorian season 1 or 2 poster, right? Like, there was one
when he's coming through that door.
Yeah, when he's coming through the cantina door, and that's where, yes. So what you see is a full Lego recreation of that, like coming through the cantina, the circular cantina door where Mando is kind of shadowed. You have the full cantina door set up that's made with Legos. You have little Lego Mando, set pieces around our Legos, sand on the ground to match the aesthetic of that poster. It is a perfect Lego recreation of that poster and looks just spot on. So Lego Shock 0451 killed it on this one for sure.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, the technology being used, they use the older iPhone, use some AI to upscale, enhance it, and it's a nice pairing of the technology. Lego Shock's in our Discord, always sharing in our artist community channel there. So it's always I always like that. It's not like we reward people that play with us, but it is nice to see, like, hey, those that do kind of kick around the SWTS community. It's always nice when Nick kind of knights them with a top 5.
Yeah. Well, this is a well-deserved top 5 here from at Lego Shock 0451 official on the Instagram. So next up in this top 5, I mean, like, Matt, I don't know if you're referring to this one or the next one, but I feel like both of these had to be on here.
It is the next one, but you're not wrong. It was a good week. It was a good week.
It was
like some of the heavy hitters were smacking them out of the park, and some of the accounts you may not always be following were also kind of on top of their game.
Yeah, I mean, so for number 4 up here in the top 5 this week, we have one from 850 Sith Lord on Instagram, and it's the OG crew, all of them, and it's where their fame was first made on the Death Star. So we see Luke Skywalker in his farm boy outfit whipping the Skywalker family blade fully out and emitted off to his right hand side over his shoulder, or screen right over his shoulder. R2-D2 and C-3PO lit up and ready for action. Over screen left, you have Han and Leia and Chewie, and then off to the back right, you see old Ben, Obi-Wan Kenobi there as well. The posing on here is great. I don't know if some of these are custom head sculpts, but the Luke head sculpt looks crazy good. His face looks awesome.
These are all the SH Figure Arts 1/12 scale. So
okay, yeah. I mean, the shot itself is just so good. The posing is fantastic for everybody. The way that they're lined up is great. I mean, this is like a hero shot that I would put on my wall for sure.
Yeah, no, this is a solid one. It's a great shot. It also showcases just how awesome these figures are. I have all these, by the way, the originals, if anyone wants to possibly buy them. Although I think they've started to re-release them, so my aftermarket bump is probably toast at this point in time. But great work here from at 850 Sith Lord over on Instagram.
That's right. And to close out the top 5,
like, how much talent can one person get? It's getting a little unfair here with Connor.
Yes, so we're going back to our buddies over at Beyond the Dune Sea, and more specifically Press Pause Photography on Instagram, aka Connor. Connor is the host, one of the hosts of Beyond the Dune Sea, and he's also a toy photographer, and he put out an absolutely killer shot.
Yeah.
In honor
the attack
of the
on
Bad
Tantus,
Batch.
bro, right? I mean, that's what it looks like.
Could be. It could be the attack on Tantus. So what we see here is from screen right to left, we see Omega, we see Hunter, we see Echo, we see Rex, we see Crosshair, and then we see Wrecker way off there in the back, like the top, like middle of the frame.
There's another one there. Wolf's there too.
Oh, okay. Is he? Okay.
He's
I
like
couldn't
tucked
tell.
under Hunter's arm. If you look,
I was going to say, I was like, there's somebody whose face is obscured by Hunter's arm. And then there's another one way in the back.
I'm
that
telling you, man,
this
could be the main raiding party at Tantus. Like, no bullshit.
Could be.
This is at least what I have in my little soft head.
Yeah, so we see all of the batch members and the batch's friends out in force, firing away from cover as they're assaulting something. Could it be Tantus? It very well could be. But this was one of those shots where it's like, as soon as you see it, you're like, well, that's in the top 5 for sure. And let me find 4 others.
Yeah, it's like it just goes to show you, like no bullshit. I mean, Connor is a very creative, artistic person. They just listen. He's good at it. They make great little videos. At least for me, I think their videos are expertly edited, thought out. They're funny. Their intros every week are hilarious. They did one last week. They're pretending they're like bounty hunters working with the Bad Batch. It's like the mind on these people, on Connor in particular. I'm envious. My brain does not work that way. So it's always a pleasure of mine to give him a shout out. He's a good kid. And I could say that. He is a young motherfucker. So press_pause_photography_ just don't forget Matt and Nick when you guys have the Thunderdome. We need to be a part of the team. Thank you.
Yeah, there we go. So that's it. That's the end of the top 5, and that's the end of our show for this week.
Woo woo.
Hey, 2 hours on the nose. I feel like this was a very well-paced show, and we got you guys.
Let's just sit here and stare at each other for the next 25 minutes, so they get their full 2.5. Bat was already like, man, short show today. It's like, hey, we're ripping you all off. You're not getting your money's worth this week, but it's okay. Every once in a while, we need a break, especially me. I've been going at it since 5:30 this morning because we had tornadoes roll through. You ever hear those sirens go off not on noon on a Wednesday? It's kind of jarring. You're like, oh shit, are the Russians coming? Is it China? No, it was a tornado, and it actually took out some property fairly close. Yeah, it's wild, dude. It's not something we usually deal with here in Ohio.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you dodged that bullet, my friend.
Me too. So. I didn't feel like dying quite yet, or dealing with insurance companies and kind of putting a life back together. So yeah, knock on wood, all hail the Force. But as Nick said, it's time to say goodbye. And don't worry, you never have to leave the Star Wars Time Show. Like I said, I'm putting out content every day. You can always interact with us. You just got to find us. And the best way to find us is heading on over to StarWarsTime.net. You can hit the socials over there. You can get subbed up to the podcast platforms we're on, which are plentiful. If you listen to a podcast, there's a good chance our show is on it. So tune in, search for it, follow. More importantly, though, if you're digging or not digging what you see, leave us a rating and review. That's as important as it gets to us. The feedback, the interaction with the algos, letting us know, hey, your content sucks, or hey, we dig it. So keep it up. There's always time for Star Wars Time. Don't you forget it. And the best place to go to get people in the know for the best Star Wars fan show on the internet is StarWarsTime.net. All right, everyone, got another single episode of Bad Batch to take in next week, and then the week after that, we'll be up to a double. So keep those browsers tuned to youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show or StarWarsTime.net in between now and then. And as we always leave you, we just want to remind you with this simple fact in life. But if you listen to the Star Wars Time Show, the Force will be with you always. Hold on. Oh, wait. Hold on. Always.